Good afternoon. Hi there. I'm so happy to see you. I'm Dr. Robin Gould, newcovenantpath.com, and here you are on Lamb Network TV. I'm so glad to see you. I know the last few weeks we have drawn from the archives, which I'm so glad we have because we were sick in our household and just kind of one after the other. And it took a bit to recover. I'm not going to lie, it was not fun, but we're definitely rebounded now and ready to get back with programming. But anyway, I'm so happy to see you, and I've missed coming on here and sharing. And um, there was so many great Torah portions that I really had wanted to cover and had all these notes, and it was really something I was looking forward to. But next time, right? So God willing. So anyway, I just want to remind you as you listen today to what I'm going to share and just some points I think will be helpful to you is that the future begins now. And I would say that every time we start this program, and it's very important to me to say that because I really truly mean it. And if I don't live with that mindset, I can become very weighed down by anxiety. And when I do live in that mindset, when I actually intentionally try to bring my mind to that place that the future begins now, it's an enormously liberating and empowering way to look at and paradigm to have. I believe it's the truth, and I believe massive anxiety and depression and just like constant and chronic upset, worry, whatever is not the truth. That's not living in the truth. And then we're going to talk about fear today a bit, not in any generic way. I generally can tend to bring a bit of controversy to different uh, parts of the layers that are attached to these topics because I come from every angle of attachment. So all the angles wrap around attachment from my perspective. And I'm an attachment specialist, and I'm really obsessed with the idea of attachment. And I believe that that lends itself extremely powerfully to the Spirit of God and His parenting and the relationship that we have with Him and with others and our understanding of ourselves. So anyway, that's kind of some of the things that we'll talk about today. So get comfortable. I hope you have something warm to drink. If it's winter where you are, I'm in Florida. It's even a little bit of a chilly day, a little bit today. But let's get into, I want to talk about, and I'm actually just going to bring up a few things. We don't have that much time. It's already 5 minutes basically into what's going to be a little bit under an hour. So the future begins now, and we're going to talk about Yitro. And I'm just actually I'm not reading it. I'm going to just read you the nutshell. So I went on to Chabad's website, and they have the Torah portion and they have a nutshell. So some people like to look at a nutshell of something prior to reading it. So they say, okay, what is this saying? Now I'll read it. I personally don't prefer to read that way because I think when I do that, if I get reminded of the nutshell, I might miss something along the way that will pop out at me. So that's kind of interesting that I nutshell the portion for you, but I wanted to just read this. It's just from them because I feel like they just do a very concise job, and it's Exodus 18:1 through 20 18:1 through 20:23. Okay, so that's what you're going to read, but I'm basically just going to run down basically what Chabad had nutshelled. So here, just to credit them. So this is where we're still talking about Moshe. Okay, so, and we're talking about Moshe's father-in-law, Jethro. And so you remember he was a priest of Midian. Okay, very complicated for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. I was actually just talking about this a couple of days with somebody, and we were talking about how people struggle with these biblical ideas that challenge narratives we have to simplify things and to make things fit into the box or the framework from which we think is right. And that's part of what I want to talk about. You know, these themes all kind of work together, because he was a priest of Midian. So they say, well, he must have definitely converted for Moshe to ever take advice from him or whatever. Okay, even though it doesn't say that anywhere in the text, the sages have different ideas. There's a couple of different competing thoughts there, but I want to just give you my idea, and you just kind of go with what you think after your study and your research and your prayer. But it talks about Moshe's father-in-law Jethro, and what he does is he hears of these great miracles which God performs for the people of Israel, and he comes from Midian to the Israelite camp. And of course, Moshe had left his wife, and they had 2 sons, so he left them behind. So he brings his daughter, Moshe's wife, and his 2 grandchildren, Moshe's 2 sons. People struggle with that. They're like, how did he leave his family? How is this the person the father leads to lead when he's left his family? This is another thing that people struggle with. And so here's where Jethro gives advice to Moshe. He advises him to appoint a hierarchy of magistrates and judges to assist him in the task of governing and administering justice to the people. And so they describe how the children of Israel camp opposite Mount Sinai, where they're told that God has chosen them to be his kingdom of priests and a holy nation. And so the people respond by, coming into agreement. They proclaim, right, as a declaration, all that God has spoken, we shall do. I was called that a wedding on the side of a mountain. On the 6th day of the 3rd month, Sivan, right? 7 weeks after the Exodus, the entire nation of Israel assembles at the foot of Mount Sinai for the giving of the Torah. And this is where God descends on the mountain amidst thunder and lightning, billows of smoke, and the blast of the shofar, which I guess apparently rattled them to their core, because he summons Moses to ascend, and God proclaims these 10 commandments, the 10 words as they're called sometimes, the people of Israel to believe in God, not to worship idols, not to take, God's name in vain, to keep the Shabbat, to honor their parents, not to murder, not to commit adultery, not to steal, not to bear false witness, or to covet another's property. And the people cry out to Moshe that what they're experiencing, this revelation, is far too intense for their physical bodies, their emotional aptitude to bear, to deal with. And they beg him to receive that Torah from God and then, be like the mediator, convey it to them. There was something that was just completely and utterly terrifying to stop this dialogue of the creator of the universe, and ask Moshe to be this conduit, right? Okay. Ooh, there's a lot in here. So here's some of the principles, and I apologize, but the allergies seem to follow me even in the winter. Okay. So there's a few things going on here, and I want to just pick out a couple of the things because I want to help us. And when I say paradigm shift, I know that can be a scary term to people. They're like, why do you want to switch my paradigm? But I think we need to. And I do believe that this is the move of the spirit right now, for people to understand on a practical sense that a lot of things don't make sense to you, and that is okay. And it's very important that we get that. Very, very important. That's probably what I need to wrap my head around even more, and I think that's one of my journeys that I've been in the last couple of years. And I feel like that journey's really ramped up in the last, I'm going to say 6 months, 8 months, because I'm seeing a lot of things happen around me. And, I just have issues with us trying to make the Father in our image of Him rather than be a reflection of the image of Him that He made us to be. I think we have that reversed. And by trying to fit Him into palatable boxes that humans understand and that humans can make a pamphlet of that people would accept and digest, I think we are missing that. We're really, like I say on this program, I mean, we're not co-parents. He's the dad, we're the kid. We have to stop pretending we're the dad. We have to stop making parental decisions for ourselves. We have to stop trying to, as a child, explain all of the parents' actions according to our interpretation as children, demanding we're right, dying on hills that aren't hills to die on, right? This is where we get a lot of division. And the arrogance of a lot of people will kind of pop up here. And I think that arrogance is the lack of humility. That arrogance is, I will make sense of him, and I will deliver that to you. And then you'll say, wow, she is a great, or he is a great teacher. I don't necessarily believe that is a great teacher. I believe we here discuss things, right? We uncover things. I share with you what I see from my perspective. I tell you what I think is true, but I don't die on that hill. And I'm not really a thus saith the Lord person per se, because very rarely, I mean, I don't think that's how it's supposed to go. Now that's complicated to a lot of people. Like, well, it's true or it's not, Okay, you can draw that line in the sand if you want to. But you're wrong about some stuff. I'm wrong about some stuff. So that's we'll just leave that there and move on to what I kind of gleaned for myself as I was reading through Yitro. Okay. So one of the things is Jethro a priest within the Torah? I don't know. It doesn't say. I don't care. Okay, now what does that mean? Why don't you care? Because in our lives, we're never supposed to take advice from a person that's not a Torah person. That's what you hear, right? To which I respond, well, even a broken clock is correct twice a day. Okay. That might be a little too loose here, so let's tighten it up. Do you ever listen to advice of people who don't celebrate the feast? They don't know about them, or they haven't figured that out yet. They're not there yet. I do. I have taken advice from people that don't understand the feast, but they understand the tongue. They understand kindness. They understand forgiveness. They understand boundaries. The list could go on, right? Because the fruit of the Spirit is the fruit of the Spirit. And every single thing doesn't have to walk on all fours to be everything. And we can't expect it to. And so he just might be a wise person who is in charge of groups of people and understands group dynamics and knows how things should go. So, okay. Earlier we have the Torah portion where, he was afraid about his past coming back to haunt him. And Jethro was like, basically, don't worry about it. So just be aware that we need to look at some principles here without getting into the minutia of who Jethro was. That isn't what is important here, who he was. Let's talk about what Moshe did, because Moshe was selected very specially and specifically for a particular role. Let go of Jethro. Okay? We don't really always want to take advice from a donkey, but a donkey has spoken. Okay. So what Jethro says is he's talking about, like, what are you're sitting here like all day long, and what's going on? And Moshe's like, well, you know what? All the people, the law was given to me. And because the law was given to me and I took on that role, because he did agree, okay, I will take this on. and be that conduit for the people. And they stand in line, and then they come to me, and I make decisions, about how to interpret the law, and who, he's a judge, right? And so what he's saying is, you know what? That is not good. He says it's not good. This is not the way it should go. And it's not like, basically, that word is even found in Genesis about good, like in the Lord saw it was good. It's not good. It's not in order. It's not the way things need to be unfolding. So that's not how this works, he's saying. This isn't good. Now, this is a priest or a former priest who knows people, knows groups, whatever. And he tells them, what you need to find people that are with you. So in my Talmudic studies here, that the understanding there is that they'd be like-minded to Moshe and very similar in righteous, like humble, right? Because Moshe was the meekest, like the most humble. So the times where I feel like Moshe, remember when the father was mad at Moshe because he's like, I'm slow of speech, like pick somebody else. And Moshe was the most humble, but he got a rebuke there. The father was angry, but here's the thing, because the definition of humility, as I've said so many times for so long in this program, is the appreciation of the self you were given, which would reject the self that you've made. So the self you are given is your true self, made by the Father. And then the self that you have turned yourself, you generated yourself, you've curated yourself, that's the false self. And that's the flesh you die to, right? And so the idea here would be that Moshe, the most humble person, got rebuked because he wasn't appreciating the self he was given. He was saying, I am not equipped for this. When the Father says, if I'm calling you out to do this task, I've equipped you. Come as you are. And come as you are is a very controversial idea to a lot of people, because a lot of people live their whole life in when this happens, right? And they're always waiting for this thing to happen. When I lose 10 pounds, when I get a better house, when I've had a baby, when my children are older, then I'll blankety, 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 blankety. Now, some of the things that we say we need to pause on are legitimate and important and wise, right? But when we live in an escapist reality, and I just used a misnomer because there's really no such thing as an escapist reality. That's not reality. But when we defer everything that we're called to do, always waiting for when the circumstances would be right, we would never be ready to be thrown into the pit so we could become the prime minister and feed it. Okay? There'll never be the right time probably for anything, right? Because we live in a corrupt world, and that's just how it goes. So he's like, find people like you. Now, what do I take from that? This is what pops out to me. Now, last year when I went through this portion, other things popped out to me. This year, here's what came to me. I feel like the advice he was given by somebody that the Bible records as giving him advice. So it would make me think this is the advice he should take, is to say, Moshe, you're going to have to let some of this go. You are going to, number one, when you're going to go from vine to vine, make sure you got a secure grasp of this vine before you let go of this vine, for sure. So pick good judges, right? Pick people that are with you, because then you're not going to have chaos in the camps where this judge would judge so differently than this person, because then that wouldn't be fair, right? There would be too much diversity. Okay. So he's like, pick good judges, but he's saying, let some stuff go. Let other people make choices. Let other people make decisions. Let other people listen to something, render a decision, and you don't even know about it. And then when the big, big, big things that these other people can't seem to solve, then that stuff goes to you. So there's this hierarchy. And so that's important to know. So what does this tell me? I, I need to let some things go, right? I can't be on everything all the time. I can't fix everything. I can't make everything good all the time. As a marriage and family therapist, which I'm a systems therapist and attachment specialist, I mean, where, your job is to help put things in order, help tease things apart. I constantly have to remind myself, I'm not responsible for this, the outcome. I'm only responsible for this hour, and how I conduct myself in that hour, and how I attach with that person, and uh, how we properly connect with what's the truth, right? That's what I'm responsible for. What they do with that is not my responsibility. And it's very easy for people put in these kinds of roles, or take on these kind of roles. They get this savior complex. They get this whole, I've got to do it all, or I've got to show up and I've got to really deliver, whatever. Now, saying that, I will say, if I'm tired or not feeling well and I feel like I can't do what I need to do, that's wrong. And I need to only show up when I'm at my best. But I also need to show up remembering, I'm Robin. Okay, that's all I am. I don't need to be more, right? And go into the false self of, the savior or whatever, because those things can be reinforced when you are good at helping people, right? So it's always a constant check. So letting some things go and just not worrying about them. And so this kind of goes into, they're telling the people, um, the way the people respond to this new situation. What's interesting, and I was reading, I was actually in this, check this out. This is like the Talmudic teachings, and they talk about how the people, to follow the law like properly, right? To when a decision was rendered on their case, that they were to leave happy that justice was done, even if it was not favorable to them, but it was right. That right there is huge, right? So leave happy, even if you don't get your way. That's what the people are supposed to do. So he's to pick good judges, and the people are to accept that these are good judges. Okay, so the people have to trust the system. So Moshe, picked by God, humble man, pick the right people to adjudicate, make sure that the people are compliant. All you say, we will do. And this creates communal order, right? This creates, this family, right? And so this requires Moshe to trust some of the people. He has to trust that the greater group of people being judged and bringing forth their problems and where they need a judgment, that he's going to trust them, that they're going to do the right thing, pretty much, and leave happy, and this will work. He's got to trust the people. He also has to trust the judges, right? The people that he selected to make a decision, and to say, you know what, even if maybe I might not have exactly said that, that's the right thing, because I can't do it all. And what they did was what should be done, and it's okay. And let go of control. Just relinquish this idea of, I'm completely in charge and everything I do is right, or no one's going like that sort of thing. That's what I get. And I love that. Like, I think when there's wisdom in mighty wisdom in multiple counselors, and I really do believe that. And I'm a big one to go seek wise counsel, and then take said counsel. Like, I'm a big one for that. It's a reassuring thing. It's helpful, right? And I think it's better for the people that you're serving, that you're checking in and keeping yourself accountable and working toward, what is justice? What is truth, right? Let's make sure I'm not operating for my biases, right? So I want to just say this. So in general, in religious systems, and let's stick to, if you're listening to me, there's some level of Torah probably that you're interested in. And, that's what you're interested in. And so I say this knowing that it's very easy for me to say this because I happen to be speaking at an area of strength I have. This just happens to be my area of strength. I have plenty of areas of weakness. Okay. I'm not, just don't even think I don't. But I have one thing I've learned is to trust people. And so when I first started doing that, to trust other people in terms of getting stuff done, it's going to be done. I'm going to stop thinking about it. I can't do everything. I'm just going to relinquish this project into someone else's hands and they're going to finish it or whatever. That never used to be me. But it is now for a long time. And it used to be like, am I getting lazy? Am I just not caring? Am I detaching? I think I have been developing more trust of the people, right? Which Moshe had to have. And I firmly believe after maybe just conquering that in my own life, seeing the fruit of that, how much better it is to live that way. I have the following to share. This might sound harsh and I apologize, but I would say that you can have a scholar, you can have a person that says or appears to have a lot of Bible knowledge. They're maybe scholarly, whatever that word actually means, right? But if you have Bible knowledge and you really have no trust in the people, that's pretty much useless information that you have. Because the Bible is the whole intent of the Bible, I think, personally, my opinion, Robin's opinion, is that it is a document, an ancient document written by the Father to cohesively bind a family. Not for you to have an opportunity to share your intelligence, to be right, to tell people, you're getting that little off and that's making us all look bad. All of that stuff, right? That's all the flesh. That's all that false self we need to die to. That I'm going to rebuke you because you think this is in this category. But from a scholarly perspective, we can't prove that conclusively. And it makes us all look whatever, which ultimately makes God look bad. I hear that from different groups of people. And it's just repulsive to me because nothing makes God look bad. Nothing. And if you think you have the power by anything bad you can do, that he's not quite on the throne, and when people look at him, like that's on you, right? The Father is still on the throne, and he can never, ever, ever look bad. It's just not going to happen, no matter what you do, no matter what groups of people do. If a person wants God, you cannot talk them out of it. And if a person doesn't, you cannot talk them into it. And I just end and rest my case there. And so you have to like the people. You have to have some trust and faith in the people. And it's really, really important that people have this, because to think you know everything, to look at no, and you know what? A lot of people who say they rebuke people for thinking they know everything when they're acting like they know everything by saying, but the whole time they're saying, "I know I don't know everything," and that's what you kind of can tell by the fruit if they really believe that. Like, I mean, people who just have this grandiose self-importance, they just think you have hours of time to invest in their stuff. It's interesting, right? I just kind of see these dynamics play out. It's just really interesting to me. But you know how they say perfection is the enemy of the good? You know what? People aren't perfect. And all the judges that Moshe put in place, they didn't do everything perfect, but it was good, right? It was good enough. And it's okay if everything wasn't always perfect. Okay, that doesn't mean justice isn't served. It means justice within human beings will do its best. Okay, that's all that means. And so this is where you're getting like Moshe loved the people, right? He fought for them. He's like, change your mind, oh Lord, on like your wrath on how upset you are with them. Like he loved the people. Moshe was known for it, right? Since he appreciated the self he was given because he was so humble, he could appreciate who they were. And so he got rebuked when he slipped into what I think is that false self of um, pick someone else. Like, I'm not good enough, right? There's two false selves I think Moshe operated in that he had to work through. Would be the I don't know what you want to call it. He just didn't feel like he was a good speaker. So he was insecure and he was just not good enough on the unworthy one, right? Like, right. The one that was just not good enough. And the father's like, no, he came against that. But then also trying to, Jethro was rebuking him saying, it's not good. You're going to wear out. Like you can't live your life being the judge, right? So maybe that false self of the needed one, that I find my worth by being needed and doing it all. And I've got to fulfill every task, right? The busy one or there's a lot of different ways that people view that false version of our human, as we walk out our human experience, we have to die to that. And he had to die to that, and he did. So it's like a false self, that being like the needed one or the important one or whatever. But I don't think it really, personally, I don't know that it went into the important one because Moshe was humble. But being needed and feeling like, wow, it's got to be all up to me. That's kind of what I would call, like, there's different fault selves. There's like the controller and the arrogant and the abuser up there. And then underneath you've got, these other ones, these insecure, more bottom feeder fault selves that I feel like Moshe those were the kind of the ones he slipped into, just my opinion from reading about him. But if you don't like people, right, you absolutely have no business at all in any realm sharing divine words from their dad, right? You're not a messenger of the way the father takes care of and loves and cares about you, the people. If you don't even like the people that he loves and created, you have no business if you don't like people. So if you're a teacher and you don't like people, find another job. Find another thing to do, but don't do this. You've got to like the people. I remember there was that movie, Freedom Writers. If you've ever seen that movie, I constantly, just the other day, I recommended this to somebody. And I've spoken on this program about this movie, but it's a true story. And I'm not going to tell you the whole, big, long thing, but there's one thing I want to tell you about this movie. It's a true story. Erin Gruel, this teacher, and she goes into this inner city school where they were, integrating more inner city with the established school, so there were more choices and options and opportunities, and she was very excited to be a part of this. So like I've shared in other programs, she came in and she didn't see these waste of time students who didn't care. She just saw potential in all these people and in all these kids, right? And she goes out of her way and really uses all her gifts and talents, everything she has to bear, she brings and gives to these kids and just really teaches them. And it really is amazing to see how they responded. Of course, first they hate her and then they start kind of embracing some of this information she's sharing because she's finding things that resonate with them so they can learn on their terms. She didn't try to make them learn on her terms while she set boundaries and had rules and classroom order, communal order, what have you. But what's interesting is the powers that be, the people that were in charge, right? The more experienced teachers, they had tenure, whatever, right? They had seniority. They hated her. They were so angry because here's this new person running in with all this hubris and zeal, and she's so excited and she loves these kids and she just can't wait to give and give and give and give and give. And they viewed ththese kids as like wastes of space, that they were like, don't even be, just please, whatever. So there's a scene where she is a freshman and a sophomore English teacher, but she had this class that prior to that had become what was they were, cynical and pain driven and gang related, just all this. But she, in this one room, like kind of created like what she would say a family, right? She's like, we're like a family. So she wanted to teach them for junior and senior year. And there's this scene where she's talking to the senior teachers, and there's a meeting, and there's the person, the judge that's sitting there, if you will, the head of the school board, who would render the decision if they can break protocol for the sake of this class. Like, could we change schedules and affect things and go out of our way to make it that you can also teach these kids on the ongoing second 2 years of high school that was remaining. And one of the teachers, just so angry and just so upset. Every time this woman succeeded, this woman was so angry. And she said, basically, if those children, if those students couldn't do well without her, she was the problem, right? She wasn't one of their solutions. And I never forget Miss Gruelle, the teacher. She looked at her and she said, you can't teach them. You don't even like them. And so in all the movies you see, right, you got your top 20 where there's movies you love. That's one of mine. And that moment in that movie is one of those top moments in all the movies for me, because it just was so poignant the way she said that. How can you teach people you don't even like? What is teaching? Sharing information. What do you need for somebody to receive something you're bringing? You need trust. You need a connection. There's an exchange being made. They're going to give you their attention and open their mind to what you're saying. And you've got to bring something worth giving. And you've got to want to give it. And here, the Bible is an attachment document full of attachment rituals from a father who loves his family, loves his children, and wants them to be together and to be with him. Well, that's amazing. So if you don't carry value, trust, and love for the people you're speaking to, you're just those other teachers who are angry at success because they are dealing with their own personal issues of power and control and roles and importance. And they're comparing, and they're just angry. You see that in religious circles, right? You see people that are doing that. It's really important we don't do that. You have to trust and like people. It doesn't matter if you disagree about if this particular non-biblical holiday falls in the category of like pagan or not pagan or whatever. This whole thing has just blown out of control on some level. And you're starting to get this vitriol about, so here's where I say, dump all that. Who cares if people disagree with you? If people think it's this because of what they read, leave it alone. If they don't think it's this because of what they read, stop talking about it. Like, I think just end that topic, because it's pulling the family apart. But that doesn't mean hatefully rebuke people who disagree with what you think because you think you're a scholar. Like, that whole thing, very painful. I've seen nothing but bad fruit coming from that. And it's actually very sad because it causes people to dislike the people they're supposed to be serving. And it causes people to think that those people have so much power that they make God look bad. They make the rest of the good teachers look bad. Like the whole movement, the whole idea of Torah is stupid because these people might have been partly wrong about something. You're really inflating your worth. You're really, your impact. You're really taking yourself too seriously if you think that. Humans are going to make all kinds of errors and mistakes. Ta-da, humanity. Welcome to, the world we just live in it. That's how that's going to go. People are going to not get stuff. They're going to think different things about the earth. They're going to think different things about the months, the calendar. People are going to have different opinions. And you know what? If it's important that we make sure that there's no anti-Semitism in anything that we think and do. And we don't get into this false, I'm not jumping out of these traditions to jump into new traditions. But then again, by default, it's a de facto position we take that there always are going to be traditions. You're going to make new ones and have a third set, fourth set, fifth set, whatever, because traditions are inevitable, because we are made as creatures of routine. And that's just the way it is. That's the way it's going to go. So, yeah, when I see people that are they have so much animosity, I'm just like, I'm so glad there are all those judges to deal with that. I don't want to deal with it. I don't address it. I don't comment on things like that. Oh, I just can't do it. And that's my strength, right? I like people. I've gone through phases where I have been very frustrated with mean people, right? So I do struggle with that, but I also even see, and I think in the last 6 months, I think I've even grasped this a lot more, and that people, even mean ones, they are just broken people, just, it's painful. So there are people that are damaged. They act like they're damage controllers, but they're just wrecking balls saying, stop damaging things. It's like a wrecking ball that has masking tape, and written on all the tape or painted on the wrecking ball, it says, please stop wrecking things. And it's wrecking everything with that message. It's just like that. Don't do that. Okay. Like I said, it's just happens to come from a place in me. But I want to just make this final point here. And this is something I've been talking about a lot for the last 3 weeks with people. Very particularly, there just seems to be this very strong melancholy thread plucked in people, resonating some very sad minor tones that, the minor chords, right? Like the good chords. It's like people are seeing a lot of things around them that's massively wounding to them. It's really opened their eyes, right? To see that they're naked. And when I talk to people about this, I tell them, and it's always like a shock, but, well, you've been corrupted and now your eyes are open. Now, everyone has that moment when they have that moment. But for a lot of people, that's happening now. It's kind of like that whole saying, there's no Santa, right? Like you lose your naivete. So your eyes are opened, you see you're naked, and you're confused about your identity, just like Adam and Hava. So when our eyes are open, we are corrupted. We see this ugliness. We see the carnage around us, right? And it's very difficult for our brain to absorb. And it has to make sense. Now, at least I can say it does make sense. I can't explain always how. Sometimes I can take a shot at it, right? And I think I make some good points sometimes. But it makes sense anyway, even when we can't explain it. That's always going to be my catch-all. Well, it makes sense. Don't know how, but Jethro might have been a priest of another religion still giving advice to Moshe, and that's okay. How can that be okay? You're never supposed to X, Y, and Z. Don't know. But I'm not going to pull out every magic trick out of a hat to try to contort this into something you can think fits what you think the framework needs to be. Okay. The father used Pharaoh to have a dream. I mean, do you see the father, like I said, a broken clock is right twice a day. So let it be what it is. Just let it be. But if you've been corrupted, if your time has come that you've been corrupted, you've seen, the darkness so that you can comparatively understand the light more. It shifts you, and now you actually start having faith. You're not just ignorant. Ignorant is not faith. It's naivete, right? It's not faith. Yeah, so it's a crisis of faith when your eyes are opened. And you got to decide, do you hide from God or run to God? Generally, we hide from God and become confused about ourselves until he says, I'm going to do what's good for you. I'm going to drive you out of this place where you're confused about who you are. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to have you toil in this soil. I'm going to show you plants. I'm going to show you what happens when you plant seeds and they grow up. I'm going to show you how I'm there for you. I'm not going to give you a C-section, but I am going to do the breath work with you. Right? Like this is our Father, right? So that's how I see that. So when your eyes are open because you've been corrupted, you have to watch your framework of this thing that was like, make sense, like crumble around you. And so this leads me to just my final point, because this is the idea of, are we attached to the Father as a baby that's naive and just de facto rests in the cradled arms and drinks the milk, right? When we could become corrupted and our eyes are opened and we see that we're naked, right? This is where we go from like milk to meat. So let me introduce that theme, because that's what we're going to close on. And you might have read this, but I've said this before, and I'm trying to remember who the quote is credited to, but there's a difference between a peaceful person and a harmless person. So a peaceful person opts to be peaceful because they have it in them to not be peaceful. So they're actively peaceful. Harmless means they don't have the ability to be not peaceful. So it's not by choice, it's their status. They are just harmless. Well, when you become corrupted, you become peaceful or you become destructive. It's your choice. You decide. So when we think about milk and meat, so a baby drinks milk that was generated by something else and they just swallow it, no chewing necessary. It's just, there you go, ready-made nourishment, right? And there's a time when we need that, and babies need that. So we're to be a kid, but eventually we're no longer a baby. We get reborn, and then we go to meat, right? So let's talk about, let's just use meat as our illustration here. Meat is carnage, right? That's carnage, right? That's different. To eat meat, we have to invest in the carnage ourselves. We have to kill it, bleed it properly, prepare it, cook it, and then eat it. We have to get involved in this corrupt planet, and we have to draw from God's beautiful creation of agriculture to, work through the soil. Everything is the soil. Everything's the seeds. And we have to invest in carnage to eat. He invested in carnage to put animal skins on us. He's showing us there has to be free will. You're not just a baby that doesn't know anything and doesn't choose me. Now, I choose you as my baby, and I feed you milk. And now you're corrupted. Now, who do you choose? Do you run to me with your debts and fears and mistakes, or do you hide from me? So I have to bring you into this other way, and I'm a good dad, and I'll do it. Well, it's easier said than done to trust and believe in, right? And to be okay with. I mean, I so want to sit here and say to you that, well, I will say I know that all things the Father does are good. They're good for me. Though I will not say that I'm okay with all that. There's things that I just can't imagine happening and I don't want to have happen. But it would be the right thing for me ultimately. Now, that doesn't mean I don't believe that this earth is spinning on its axis with its carnage, and I'm a part of that. But I want to believe nothing's senseless as the Father and I strive through my life together, right? We strive together. So that's attachment, right? We're together. So whatever that means to you, right? Attachment is where your primary caregiver is able, they benefit from the relationship, they're able to invest in a give and take way that's safe, right? Attachment, these are the important parts of attachment, that they benefit, that they're able. They have to be able, they have to be benefiting, right? They have to care about it. And these are important things that we have to understand. The Father is capable and he benefits from the relationship. And there's a third one, but that's going to be next week. But we do get our hands dirty with blood, with killing, with arguing, with strife, with division. Okay. Yeah. So we do have to allocate some of the stuff to other people and say, I'm backing off this. Y'all figure this out. I'm good. Like, and I enjoy doing that. Really do. And it feels nice to be together and to make decisions together. That's a nice feeling. People that operate in the false self of the controller, they actually don't really get that feeling. They don't really kind of see the fruit of how when God's creation works in harmony, it's really beautiful. Like beautiful, right? Just when the breeze is blowing and the grass is green, you see color and movement. Two things the Father made work in harmony, and it's just beautiful. And we need to be able to open our eyes to when these opportunities of beauty come our way. We need to take that in, right? Receive that and notice it. So there's going to be always this contrast as we walk through this earth, and we strive and we toil, and by the sweat of our brow, right? We have to understand that, that expression, so heavenly minded, no earthly good. I know some people might even disagree with a lot of things I say and be like, well, you watch movies like art. We don't even have a TV. We don't agree with that, whatever. But then I've learned so many really great godly principles from watching the dynamics of behavior on TV and different scripts and screenplays and the way people bring forth art and storytelling, right? That's storytelling. And not everybody loves storytelling. I do, but so I could say, yeah, media brings a fair bit of carnage into our life as much as it brings those good things. And when I am involved in that, I'm investing in carnage, right? For sure. And when I'm reading a Bible story, there's death, blood, and gore and adultery. Yeah, I'm investing in carnage on some level because it's a story. These are the stories of the earth. And there's no escaping that. So don't try to, right? But we seek to not operate in that beast, the thing that we have in common with the animals made on the same day. But the Father put his breath into us, and we rose above that, into that real true self that we were made as. And we need to appreciate that self. So that's humility. Appreciate that self. And then we love the Lord God with everything that's in us, and we love our neighbor as ourselves. And we do all three of those things at the same time with everything we do. Going to be in good shape doing that. That doesn't mean that things that you find unpleasant aren't going to happen. That doesn't mean that you're going to not suffer things that are bothersome to you and hurt you, because people will hurt you, even if you're good. It's just going to happen. So we can't isolate, but we insulate. And that's what's important. So, anyway, that's my message today. That's what I got out of intro. Those were the themes that kind of ran around in my head that I felt were really powerful. And I just wanted you to be able to see. I don't even think I have the chat on. No, I don't. Nope, I don't. So, let's see. Let me see if there's another place. No. So anyway, I'm glad we get to have this time together. I hope to see you again next week, and we will move along and see where the next portion takes us as we discuss attaching to the Father. And so no matter what, remember, the future begins now. Bye.